Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shifman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. It's another Thanksgiving week horse center for all of our fans. I know Thanksgiving is big down there in Kentucky, and you've got some good racing this weekend at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I mean, there's a lot of good racing all around the country. New Orleans, California, of course, New York. But the two races Matt identified, and I identified this week as our the two most important on the national landscape. That's what we're going to focus on. They're both at Churchill Downs, one on Friday, one on Saturday, Matt. Most importantly, happy Thanksgiving week to everyone out there. We appreciate you watching. We're thankful for you watching each and every week here on Horse Center. Matt, let's get to it. We're going to go Friday at Churchill Downs. This is the $600,000 Clark. It's for older males, Matt, going 9 furlongs. And I think we have a good betting race, a pretty wide open race. You want to start from the rail out?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The number one is Donnie Von Hemmel brings this son of gun runner. He's 5 years old, Matt, but he's still a little bit lightly raced. He got kind of a late start to his career. He didn't start his career until he was 4 years old. But there are some promising things. He had a nice allowance win at Oaklawn Park early this year, and his last race in the Fayette was pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good. Probably the best race of his career, where he came up second behind Hit Show. Hit Show, who will, I think, no doubt, be the favorite in this Clark Grade Two Clark, and deservedly so. But before that, he was sixth in the Lucas Classic again in a race that Hit Show won. He's got good tactical speed. I think he's one of a few horses who has that running style.
Yeah, yeah, there is some speed in here. I think it should be a pretty fair race. Ballsy gets blinkers on. He also gets Frankie Dettori for the second time. Dettori rode him for the first time in that nice performance, went second by 3/4 of a length to Hit Show. Hit Show seems like a type we gotta be careful too, Matt, when we say Hit Show. If I go too fast, it may sound, like an error. I don't want that to happen. Hit Show is a type of horse who doesn't seem to win by a lot, so take that into consideration when you're looking at Bowlesy, but certainly a horse who seems to be improving. Blinkers on to Tory's second time after a good performance in the Fayette. Number 2 is Grand Aspen, a son of Dialed In, Matt. Grand Aspen was showing some pretty good signs the second half of last year for trainer Todd Pletcher. Now he's trained by Jonathan Thomas, and his one race for Thomas after a long layoff was poor.
Yeah, it was, and that layoff came after Grand Aspen ran in Pegasus World Cup, where he ended up at the back of the field, and then, as you said, time off, changed barns. Jonathan Thomas, and was eighth in the Fayette. So I don't know. It seems like Jonathan Thomas is trying to figure this one out. He doesn't usually come right back after poor performances with his horses. So this is definitely a wait and see for me.
Yeah, it's a wait and see. It's hard to pick him out. I will say that he has run well. Second time off the layoff before, that was again for Pletcher. And there was a reason that he was bet in the Fayette a little bit, although his last two races, he's lost by over 80 lengths. So it's hard for us to point him out as one of the main contenders in here. Looking at the list next, Matt, is number 3, Troopy. I know this is a horse that you like in here. Troopy has very little early speed, but he's a proven graded stakes horse for sure.
He is, and he's a horse that always shows up. Brian has been running in top competition. Third in the Woodward last time. Second in the Whitney before that. Second in the Brooklyn. A win in the Suburban. And with his late running style, I think he's going to get a good setup in here.
Yeah, yeah, I think there is the opportunity to rally in the Clark. I will say about Troopy, I feel like he's one of those horses who who does better against a little bit lesser. When he goes against grade 1, grade 2 types, I don't think it looks as good. He sits 3rd in the Woodward, 2nd in the Whitney. The Woodward was 3rd by 14 lengths. The Whitney, however, was a very good performance and probably his best performance ever against good horses, where he rallied for a nice second behind Arthur's Rye. Next on the list, of course, is Paroli. Paroli, we know, is a West Coast horse for trainer Michael McCarthy, Matt, but his last two have been east of the Mississippi with mixed results.
Yeah, and trainer Michael McCarthy has been keeping a string in Kentucky recently. Thus, the allowance win at Keeneland for Paroli. But before that, he was ninth in the Charlestown Classic.
Yeah, the Charlestown Classic was no good to be sure, and that's a can be a quirky track for horses. The allowance win at Keeneland, though, is pretty good. He beat decent horses. He did nicely, going 9 furlongs at Keeneland last month. So I think this is a horse that's worth looking at as a long shot in here. He was second in the Grade One Gold Cup last year out in California. He has some decent results out there in California. Very spotty lately. I think you're going to get some odds, but that Keeneland race certainly gives hope. Next on the list is one of the horses probably who will get bet quite a bit, and it's one of the horses for trainer Brad Cox. Matt, Most Wanted has not lost a race yet. He hasn't been winning by open lengths, but he's 4 for 4.
Yeah, another good 3-year-old for Brad Cox. I don't know how many times we've said that in 2024, but it seems like an awful lot. And obviously a little bit later developing here. Did not take part in Triple Crown races. 4 for 4, as you mentioned, another horse that maybe prefers to be racing up front. And has stakes victories in the Ellis Park Derby and the Oklahoma Derby. Now, Brian, though, will be facing older for the first time.
Yeah, it's hard to know how big a jump this is for Most Wanted. As you said, he's coming off two Derby, smaller Derby wins at Ellis Park and Remington Park. I do think he beat pretty good 3-year-olds there. I don't think they were allowance type of Ellis Park and Oklahoma Derbies this year. But on the other hand, those are good 3-year-olds. Now he's facing probably a little bit better than good older horses. So it is a step up. Matt, I have the Timeform US pace projector up now because you mentioned another horse who could be involved. And there goes that red button for fast pace from Timeform US, warning us that this could be a pretty strong pace. One, Bolsey gets blinkers on after that good Fayette. Most Wanted, number 5, 4 for 4, coming off a couple of minor Derby wins as a 3-year-old. And then also Cook Creek, who seems to be turning his career around for trainer Mike Maker. All have some early speed. Number 2, Grand Aspen, not far behind. That's what you were talking about a little bit with Krupe. This could set up for a horse to come from off the pace.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian.
All right, we're going to go back to the list here now and get to the favorite finally. Number 6, another Brad Cox training that most wanted 4 for 4. We don't know how he fits in. I think we know better how Hit Show fits in. We had some good races last year as a 3-year-old, winning the Withers, just missing, probably unlucky in the Wood Memorial. Made a good race in the Kentucky Derby to be fifth, fourth in the Belmont. Kind of went off the boil a little bit in his last few races as a 3-year-old. But this year, 4 for 5, kind of storming some tracks where they weren't having the big boys or kind of avoiding the real grade one competition. But he's 4 for 5. He's won 3 straight graded stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. The Fayette that we've mentioned, the Lucas Classic that we've mentioned, and we'll talk about a little bit more. There are several horses who have run in one or both of those races, running behind Hit Show, and then before that, a win in the West Virginia Governor Stakes, a Grade 3. He's in his sweet spot here, I think, Brian Hit Show, in terms of the level competition that he likes, and he's done quite well in it.
Yeah, I think this is a grade 2. I think this is a legitimate grade 2 race to get to your point, Matt. Sometimes the Clark is a little bit more grade one-ish. Sometimes it's not a solid grade two, but this looks like a solid grade two in the depth of quality of horses in the race, and Hit Show fits well in grade two racing. I will also say that he seems to fit pretty well at Churchill Downs. He had one race where he was out of the money early, very early in his career, but his last 3 races, that 5th that I mentioned behind Mage and 2 Phils and Angel of Empire in the Kentucky Derby, a good performance. This year, he's 2 for 2 with a nice debut win at 9 furlongs, and then, of course, that Lucas Classic win at 9 furlongs over the track in Churchill Downs. I guess what we're saying, Matt, is he is a deserving favorite here in the Clark. Number 7, another interesting horse, Rattle and Roll. Kenny McPeak having a huge year as a trainer. Brian Hernandez Jr. having a huge year as a rider, but Rattle and Roll has not raced much. In fact, he's only had the one start this year, Matt, and I don't know how much we can take from that one start this year.
Yeah, I agree, Brian, and interesting looking PPs because his last 2 races, separated by an entire year, are coming out of the Lucas Classic. In 2023, he ran 4th in the Lucas Classic, and then it was a year off. He came back and made his debut in 2024 as a 5-year-old and ran a nice third place finish, coming off such a long layoff. I think there's a lot to like about this horse, and if it's an indicator that he can get back to the way he was running in 2023, a year when he had 3 grade 3 wins, he fits really well in here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I do think he fits in really well uh, in here. Those wins in the Ben Ali, the Pimlico Special, the Blame last year, and even his second place finish in the Grade One, Stephen Foster, second by half a length when they ran 147 and change. Those were big performances, bordering on Grade One performances. Like Hitcho, I think he went off the boil just a little bit in his last couple starts last year. Had a long layoff. The McPeak barn is high on Rattle and Roll this year. They say he's never been better. Could be trainer speak, but on the other hand, they're not a stable that goes crazy with their positive comments about horses. Don't forget, they really wanted to get him in the Breeders' Cup Classic. His only start this year was the Lucas Classic. He has very good form at Churchill Downs, even though you might not know it from those 2 starts in the Lucas Classic. But it was a sloppy track and a very moderate pace, and he still rallied to be 3rd in there. I think it's a promising start to the year. I think there is a lot to like with Rattle and Roll. Can't throw out Red Route 1, the 8 either, Matt. We haven't seen him since July, the July 4th weekend at Prairie Meadows when he won the Grade 3 Cornhusker.
Yeah, another one whose best races make him a horse you need to consider in this field. That win at in the Cornhusker, a Grade 3. Also, before that, he was 4th in the Pimlico Special on Preakness weekend, and was a winner of, I think, a Grade 2 stake at New Orleans at Fairgrounds earlier in the year. So for Red Route One, it's a July layoff, and not an easy spot to come back in. But if he's on his best, you have to take him seriously.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned that you're looking for a horse to rally in here. Red Route 1 is certainly one of the candidates to do that. He'll probably be back towards the rear with Troopy early, but it reminds me a little bit of Rattle and Roll in his career. Maybe Rattle and Roll has won a few more stakes, but he's a year older. Red Route 1 has proven himself time and time again. Don't forget last year in the Preakness, he was a decent 4th there. The West Virginia Derby winner. As you said, a couple of graded stakes wins this year. Layoff is one thing, and Rattle and Roll is a year older. He has a race coming back, but certainly one you can't throw out. Red Route 1 in here. Creek is interesting as well. Cook Creek showed some early talent when he was trained by Jeremiah O'Dwyer, but he's been in the Maker barn. He kind of maybe fizzled out in his old barn just a little bit over the races, and he was claimed for 40,000 earlier this year. I guess it was in the spring. and he's been very good since he's been in the Maker barn, Matt. And his last race was at Churchill, 9 furlongs. It was the Lucas Classic, wet track that day. He was part of the pace. He was on the lead, in fact, and it show didn't get by him easily.
Yeah, and for Cook Creek, before that Lucas Classic, he had won 3 races in a row, 2 allowances, which came since Michael Maker claimed this horse for $40,000. He also won that race from which he was claimed. And this is what Maker does, and he does it a lot. He claims horses for high tags, 40,000, 50,000 or more, basically never claiming for less than that. I think he figures he's getting a better kind of horse, a bargain kind of horse for $40,000 at the sales for $40,000. Who knows what you're getting, and frequently does well. So 2 allowance wins, 2 nice purses there. Second in the Lucas Classic, got his money worth already.
Yeah, yeah. If you believe in the Maker magic a little bit, and it's hard not to over the years, maybe more so on turf horses than dirt horses. But if you believe in the Maker magic, certainly Cook Creek is a dangerous horse in here. I think the one thing that makes him a little less dangerous in my eyes was looking back at that time form US pace projector. He's part of that early pace, which we expect to be a little crowded, and that may hurt his chances just a little bit. But Cook Creek, yet another dangerous horse. We said it was a field of depth, and Uno Moss Bourbon being the last one, Matt, and Uno Moss Bourbon is the second 3-year-old in the field. I think the other 3-year-old is going to get a lot more attention. The undefeated most wanted, but if you look at Uno Moss Bourbon in the last 4 or 5 races, he's certainly improving for Bourbon Lane Stable and trainer Ian Wilkes.
Yeah, that's for sure, Brian. Another one who you can't discount. Third place in the Fayette in his most recent start, and was a winner of the Super Derby. Boy, Brian, the Super Derby is kind of a shadow of what it used to be uh, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, there's no Sunday silences coming out of the Super Derby lately. But, yeah, Uno Mas Bourbon, uh, improving, but he still would need to make another big jump up, I think, off his, Super Derby win and the 3rd in the Fayette here to really contend here, but it's possible. He is on the improve, as they say. Alright, Matt, the other race we're gonna talk about has Kentucky Derby implications. Oh, it's too early to talk about the Kentucky Derby, but it's true. It's a points race. It's over the track, and we often see Kentucky Jockey Club horses or Goldenrod fillies back in the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks next spring in a little over 5 months. So let's take a look at that Kentucky Jockey Club field. It's also Grade Two. This is a $400,000 race. Just like the Clark, it's race 11, but again, this is Saturday, 2 days after the holiday. Mile and 16th, which is 2 turns, which I think is important. Let's start at the rail, Matt. He's not joking. It's not a practical joke. There's some things to like about he's not joking, but this will be his first dirt race.
Yes, coming down from Woodbine for trainer Josie Carroll, who frequently does make the ship from Canada to some of these Derby Trail races, particularly in Kentucky. Nice winner last time of the Gray Stakes, a Grade 3, and was third again at Woodbine in a stakes race, and all of his races happening on the Tapeta at Woodbine.
Yeah, it's a little hard to know how those races translate as far as class, not only surface, but class. Sometimes the Canadian two-year-old races can compete in graded stakes down here, and sometimes they're just a far cry away. The fact that he's 2 of 4, all 4 are pretty good races up there, but the fact that he's 2 of 4 is a little concerning against what I would question for class. But coming off a nice win in that gray last time makes you at least take a look, and he's not joking. We certainly know practical jokes often often run well in stakes races around America. The 2 looks like the favorite to me, Matt. Jonathan's Way. This is a horse who I think was very impressive in his debut at Saratoga. and also in winning the Iroquois. We know at least one horse has come out of that Iroquois, well beaten by Jonathan's Way, and looked impressive. Jonathan's Way did not look so impressive though when he went out to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last time. I guess they tried to rate him, and it turned out to be a slow pace. Did not work well. Just kind of mid pack the whole way around in a disappointing Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he does. Uh, how he stacks up against this field, which is a pretty good field. It's a field that has some horses, Brian, that we mentioned in our way too early Kentucky Derby list of contenders. So at least we picked some horses on that list that are right in the thick of things here. And I think at least another one of them's running earlier in the week at Churchill Downs, too.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to see Baffert's return with Barnes earlier in the week at Churchill Downs. Jonathan's Way, for me, coming back to Churchill Downs, he's already had a really nice workout at his home base of Churchill Downs for trainer Phil Bauer. I expect him to bounce back. I think there are questions, fair questions, though, whether he wants two turns. The Iroquois was a mile, only a 16th of a mile less than the Kentucky Jockey Club. That was one turn. This is two turns. So Jonathan's Way will have to reprove himself, if you will. But he's back to Churchill Downs, I think is a good sign. The three is Tistastic, Matt. Tistastic, an interesting horse in that he's kind of proven on both surfaces of turf and dirt. He didn't do a whole lot, and perhaps we can, kind of say, well, maybe he's not a sprinter in his debut, but he was in a maiden race with Chancer McPatrick in that debut. Since then, he's been very good.
Yeah, son of Tis the Law, and Tis the Laws have been doing quite well at the beginning of his stallion career. This one for Steve Asmussen got two wins. Uh, they were on the turf. They were both at Kentucky Downs, an allowance, a very rich allowance race, and then won the juvenile mile on the turf also. But also ran a nice second in the street sense back on the main track at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, he's 2 for 2 on turf, and he's got a ton of money on turf because of those crazy Kentucky Downs purses. But they were two nice wins on the turf at Kentucky Downs. The son of Tis the Law, as you said, came back to be second in the street sense, the grade 3 street sense, kind of the prep for this, which was about 4 weeks ago. Um, he rallied mildly, but he was not rallying with sovereignty, who won that race pretty easily. Sovereignty, though, is a horse we like quite a bit. So second in that race, I think he will find this race perhaps equally tough, but there is no sovereignty. A horse that he just barely beat in the street sense was Dapper Moon. Dapper Moon is the four horse here, Matt. And to me, Dapper Moon is the horse coming out of the street sense that I like better than Tistastic. Dapper Moon is the son of Malibu Moon, trained by Dallas Stewart. I thought he ran two very good races early on at Saratoga, sprinting, rallied with a rush to be second after an awkward beginning in his debut. Then he won off by 5 lengths. He's been in graded stakes since, two fourth-place finishes. The Breeders' Futurity, though, he had the job of chasing East Avenue, and if East Avenue is as good as a lot of people think, I think that's a tough assignment where he faded late to be fourth in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity. And last time, I'll tell you what, I like his performance in the street sense, in that he was bothered early. He still made a move to get to the lead before he faded a little bit late. I think that's a race where you can really improve off of.
Yeah, and you've got this is for Dallas Stewart. Dallas Stewart has another horse in this field also. So Dapper Moon has already made two starts on the Kentucky Derby Trail, moving from the Breeders' Futurity to that And I agree, Brian. That was an interesting performance in the street sense against a nice field.
Yeah, yeah, at least Sovereignty we know is very good. Tistastic, edged him out late, but, I think there's reason to believe Dapper Moon can do better. this time around. Number 5, another interesting horse. It'll be interesting to see how they bet Filoso. Johnny V is on Filoso here, Matt, and Filoso is another horse coming out of graded stakes competition. Last time he was in the Breeders' Futurity, he's another horse who just edged out Dapper Moon Late when he got up for third in the Breeders' Futurity.
Yep, a big late running move in the Breeders' Futurity. So again, another horse coming out of that uh, race that we consider to have a very good field with East Avenue and Ferocious. So again, an interesting horse, and as you said, it'll be interesting to see how this one gets bet in this field.
Yeah, Chad Summers trained him. No speed, but we'll have to see how this race sets up for him. Maybe we take a look at the time form US pace projector now, Matt, and let me pull up the Kentucky Jockey Club time form US pace projector. Looks very similar to the Clark.
Mhm.
Fast pace button and a number of horses out there. We haven't talked about those horses yet, but you'll see Toloso near the back of the pack. And if it does run as the Timeform US pace projector is predicting, it could set up for a horse coming from off the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks that way.
Yeah, well, plenty of speed. It's 6, 8, 10. The 2 and the 4, Jonathan's Way, the favorite, and Dapper Moon, another horse I said I liked in here, kind of just off the pace, just off that fast pace. So they might get first jump, but if it is a fast contentious pace, often that will set it up for horses who are coming from off the pace. So let's look at the number 6, who is one of those speed horses, Matt. Clock Tower is a horse who a little bit similarly to a horse we talked about in Tistastic, who might be better on turf, but I'm not sure yet. Wesley Ward trains this horse, and this horse certainly has speed.
Yes, first two races, Brian, were on the dirt, and they those races were okay, and then switched to the turf for Wesley Ward, and you know that's not unusual. Wesley will move horses back and forth between dirt and turf, particularly particularly younger horses, and once getting on the grass, broke his maiden special weight, and then ran third in the graded stakes Bourbon at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, he's a son of Not This Time, a gelded son of Not This Time, who probably as a sire produces everything. But his female side is a little sprinty, so we'll have to see. He's shown speed in all 4 races, as Matt said, 2 on the dirt. The second one, by the way, was taken off the turf, moved to the dirt. That was the Saratoga maiden before breaking that maiden at Churchill Downs. If there's one horse that we think most likely to be on the lead here, it probably is number 6, Clock Tower. A horse who won't be on the lead, Matt, is Sonic Skedaddle. Only 2 races, but he really picked it up in his second start.
Yeah, he did. He ran a nice second at Churchill Downs, uh, uh, and then broke his maiden in his second start at Churchill. This is a Brendan Walsh horse, and so often when I see that, I'm expecting it to be a Godolphin, but this is a Calumet uh, horse.
Yeah, and he actually didn't do much at all in his maiden. He was 7th in his debut, but then he won off easily coming from well off the pace last time in the maiden at Churchill Downs. It was only 7 furlongs, but a good move forward for Sonic Skedaddle. Another move forward, Tyler Gaffalione up. Could see him as a threat. First resort, we put him at 10 to 1. He could be lower than that, Matt. First resort, there's not a lot to dislike about what he's done on the track so far.
Yeah, here's the Godolphin runner, but this one for Ian Hardy, and another one, Brian, that's that's been on the dirt, that's been on the turf. This horse was a debut winner at Ellis Park back in July. Went up to Saratoga to run second in Saratoga Special, and then was fourth in the summer stakes on the turf at Woodbine. So well traveled, different surfaces, and pretty much run well in all those races.
Yeah, he's run well in all those races, and the first one was on the mud. Um, He didn't really have a whole lot of answers for showcase down the stretch in the Saratoga Special, but when he was second, still a good performance. Another speed horse for sure is first resort in here, and a horse who's run well in all three of his races, as Matt said. Could say similar about running well in each of his races, Render Judgment. They're only maiden races, but again, Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez having a big year. Render Judgment looks to have a lot of potential, and it looks like a two-turn horse.
Yeah, and looked good in that maiden victory in his second start, which got him onto that too early Kentucky Derby list of ours, as I recall.
Yeah, I like both of his races. He's shown the ability to pass horses. He rallied as Met for second in that maiden race, and then a nice win last time, going two turns at Churchill Downs. Render Judgment. This could be the type of race that sets up Render Judgment pretty well for a run in his graded stakes debut here. Last but not least, maybe least, I don't know. Redacted, Matt. What do you have to say about Redacted? I think he's a long shot in here, but wasn't a terrible debut.
No, it wasn't. It's Dallas Stewart, Brian. Dallas Stewart taking a shot, as we know he will do. He was second in his debut at Churchill Downs, and that was just 2 weeks ago, also.
Yeah, and he was actually the favorite in a nine-horse field maiden race at Churchill Downs. He made a move to get to first. Well-bred, son of honor code out of a distorted humor mare. Faded to second. The horse that won the race won it pretty easily. Would need to move forward quite a bit, but there's reason to believe he could move forward and perhaps a bomb with a shot here in the Kentucky Jockey Club. All right, those are the two big races, Matt. Friday, Saturday. Let's talk about our top picks on these two races. Let's start with you and the Clark.
All right, Brian. I guess I'm going to be on the same theme in both of the races today with my top picks. I guess I'm under the influence of that red fast pace button from Time Form with speed expected in both of these. So I'm looking for off the pace runners. I'm just not wowed by any of the favorites in these races. So I'm going to take a shot with the veteran Krupe getting the right setup, and maybe he can. Well, I expect him to get in there and get a piece of the trifecta, and maybe better.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the morning line. He's 4-1. That seemed a little low. I ride Ortiz, a horse who should get speed. Rattle and Roll won't mind a little speed as well in the Clark. And as good as Rattle and Roll was last year, as good as they seem to think he's going now in his return, I'm going Rattle and Roll. I think he can come back and still be a top-notch horse. Pretty good return race for him, McPeak and Hernandez. Now, in the Kentucky Jockey Club, I really debated between two horses. Dapper Moon is a horse who I think could really outrun his odds, and I almost made him my top pick. But I just think there's one horse who's shown me much more than any horse in the race so far. Jonathan's Way. I believe in him returning to Churchill Downs. Jonathan's Way coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I think we're going to see a big bounce back here.
Yeah, I think he certainly has a experience edge, a little bit of a class edge over this field, but we shall see. I'm going with, again, as I said, I'm going with another closer. I'm going with Filoso, trained by my friend Chad Summers.
Yeah, Veloso will be coming from the clouds, and both of Matt's horses will be coming from the clouds. So we'll see how that track treats Matt. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you, my friend?
Absolutely, Brian. I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy the festivities and friends and family, and be sure to go to the racetrack if you've got one nearby, because there's so many interesting races. And again, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving is the big message here, folks. We appreciate you so much watching. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation, go ahead and do that. Turn on the notifications. But we're thankful for you. We also want to thank our friend Candice Curtis in the home office for the race graphics, Timeform US for those pace projections we use in this race analysis, and of course our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. We'll be back next week to talk about big happenings at Aqueduct, including the Cigar Mile. But for now, happy Thanksgiving. Good luck. Thank you for watching. We'll see you real soon right here on HorseCenter.